Hey everyone, it's Jasmine Cooper of Perennial Sounds here, bringing you another score study hall. This series is meant to be a guide or introduction into score study, an exercise that is extremely important to the growth of a composer, regardless of the genre. This month will be our last foray into the world of classical music, but we're going to end on a very high note by focusing on the amazing music from Triangle Strategy. The setup for this series is simple. First, dissect the piece, either with the score or by ear. 2. Apply the skills I learned by covering a piece from a game or movie in the style study. And 3. I take it a step further by demonstrating my understanding with an original piece. Dissect, apply, do. There are 4 things that I encountered or really wanted to look into while dissecting this piece. 1. The use of modulations. 2. Using horns and woodwinds to present a countermelody. 3. Using the brass to harmonize with the main string lines. And 4. Using alternative string voices, primarily string voicings that I'm not accustomed to using in orchestral writing. The core piece that we'll be highlighting for this video is March 2 from Triangle Strategy, composed by Akira Senju. I decided to start this section with modulations because it was the initial element that drew me to this piece. There are a myriad of wonderful things about this work in general, but I would often find myself attempting to figure out the harmonic switches because they moved me so much. Now, modulations happen twice in this particular section, from C major to A major, and then from D major back to C. One really interesting technique used, which I didn't replicate, was taking the ending note of a phrase and using it to transition into the new key signature. Woodwinds can often get overlooked in score writing, especially in the current age of hybrid scoring, so I'm glad this piece utilizes woodwinds in a manner unfamiliar to me. Senju has the woodwinds playing a melody split between octaves while also having said melody bolstered by the horns. I think it's a great way to texturize the woodwinds in a manner that makes them stand out. This technique isn't necessarily new to me, but I can definitely say it's a technique I don't use often. Relying on an alternative instrument family to set the harmonies frees up other sections of the orchestra, among other perks. Senju uses the horns and trombones here, giving a much smoother texture, as opposed to using horns and trumpets, for example. Before we head to the last of our four main points, I want to highlight a bonus technique. There are a lot of trumpet swells used in this piece. What made them stand out to me, though, was the fact that crescendoing trumpets were paired with a static sustained trumpet at certain parts. I think the use was to add emphasis to the crescendos. Either way, I ended up incorporating it to the other sections of this video simply because I felt it was a really cool technique, so I wanted to make sure it got a spotlight. Lastly, we have alternate string voicings. I included this technique because of how, to my ear, Senju utilizes the low strings in the second half of this section along with the timpani. Now, this could have been approached a myriad of ways. The quote unquote normal way would be to have violas play the melody while cellos double the contrabass line an octave up. Due to spacing and prominence of certain parts, I thought that maybe the orchestration setup was violas and half of the cellos on melody, with half of the cellos doubling the contrabass in octaves. There's a timpani part mirroring the bass line as well. It looks the same, but hopefully you were able to hear a difference, at least in the string placement. This is definitely something that makes more sense in the context of live players, as opposed to good old VSTs, however you say that. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but this particular approach, especially timpani shadowing a bass line, is, in my case, a fairly unpracticed technique. There are quite a few video game soundtracks that shaped me in my youth, and one of those is undoubtedly Kirby Dream Land 3. I had actually thought about creating a project where I took Kirby Dream Land 3 pieces and orchestrated them, but I decided against doing that. Ironically, I felt that this project was perfect for exploring that desire to orchestrate these pieces, primarily because the style of music that the Kirby Dream Land soundtrack would be associated with is starkly different from the type of music that you often hear in classical video game music today. So, in this section of the video, I won't be diving in as deeply as I did the first. I'm going to show you how I applied the concepts from the first section of this video, and then play it straight through. Finally, we've reached the last segment of this video. Do. The purpose of this section is not for me to break anything down. I want you to listen and figure out exactly where I used the techniques we've covered thus far. Thanks for tuning in to this month's Score Study Hall video, and I hope you enjoy my original piece, which features gameplay from the video game Black Lake.